Now to a spy thriller unfolding in the heart of suburban Los Angeles. The CIA allegedly brainwashes a woman and turns her into a sex slave to the rich and famous.
It does sound bizarre. Jody Baskerville is here there with this Unit 13 exclusive investigation.
Bryce Taylor used to be your typical soccer mom, with a successful husband, 3 kids, and a beautiful home in the San Fernando Valley. That is, until she started telling of a secret double life as a mind-controlled sex slave for the CIA.
I would have sex with him and deliver whatever messages that I was programmed to deliver.
Now, this one-time suburban housewife finds herself the unlikely leading lady in a real-life psychosexual spy thriller co-starring a former Los Angeles FBI chief.
Bryce Taylor is absolutely telling the truth. I would stake my name and reputation of 50 years on it.
A UCLA professor of psychiatry.
I'm sure she has no evidence that the CIA really is doing this.
And a crusading psychologist.
It's what you read about the Holocaust and what they did in the Nazi camps.
If Bryce Taylor's story sounds more like a movie than reality, well, maybe that's because it's awful close to the plot of Long Kiss Goodnight. Just like Gina Davis, Bryce is knocked unconscious in a near-fatal car accident that jolts loose suppressed memories of another life as a CIA operative, seducing the rich, the famous, and the powerful from Washington to Hollywood.
All of a sudden, I'm in bed with some, politician or different Hollywood actor or comedian.
And even American presidents.
My programmed assignment was to strip, to swim with the president, and then to have sex with him later on in the evening.
Have you ever considered the possibility that you're just crazy?
I absolutely thought I was crazy initially.
But now, more than 10 years and countless psychotherapy sessions later, Bryce and a band of supporters are convinced she was indeed the victim of covert CIA mind control experiments.
If Bryce was the only person who I had heard those stories from, then I would say, this has surely got to be crazy.
Dr. Pamela Monday, an Austin, Texas psychologist, says she is treating 60 other women telling the exact same story as Bryce.
It is the worst abuse of human beings you could possibly imagine.
Then there's Ted Gunderson, a special agent in charge of the FBI's Los Angeles division until he retired in 1979.
Mind control has been in this country since the late 1940s.
Gunderson has obtained numerous declassified documents to support his claim, including a finding by a Senate investigation that the CIA has indeed conducted mind control experiments on unwitting American citizens.
It's mind-boggling. I happen to have 2,200 plus pages of documentation of the mind control program.
Bryce alleges that she and her entire family were among the victims of that program, conducted at military bases and major hospitals across the country, including Los Angeles. Bryce claims that the UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute here in Los Angeles was used by CIA-controlled doctors as a chamber of horrors where both she and her father were subjected to diabolical mind control and brainwashing experiments.
Drugs, hypnosis, electroshock, torture.
And Bryce says it turned her into a mindless Stepford wife. A programmed sex toy who could be triggered into action by the CIA with subliminal messages embedded in her brain.
I was a human robot who had no ability to think or question on my own. I could only follow commands.
Bryce, now 49, says she was just one of thousands of mind-controlled sex slaves known in the CIA as presidential models, programmed to seduce and gather intelligence from powerful men without ever remembering a thing about it.
I had no idea because I was programmed to consciously only know that I was, doing my motherly housewife duties.
Shoot Bobby Raymond.
Yes, it's strangely similar to another movie, The Manchurian Candidate. How could they do this without anyone noticing?
My husband was also programmed.
And so were their children, Bryce says, including her beautiful young daughter, Kelly.
Sometimes we were even programmed to be a mother-daughter sex team.
Whether it's true or not, Bryce's story has had a tragic effect on her once happy family. She and her husband are now divorced, and her 2 grown sons have virtually disowned her.
Well, my ex-husband and my sons think that I'm absolutely crazy.
Kelly was the only one who believed her mother's story and suffered a complete nervous breakdown over it.
Kelly actually made 2 suicide attempts.
And now at age 22, Kelly is in a catatonic state in a California mental hospital after being committed by a judge just last year.
My fear is that she will be harmed while she's in this institution.
Even Dr. John Hockman, an assistant professor of psychiatry at UCLA, doesn't doubt Bryce is convinced what she is saying is true.
She could be a great actress and just be scamming everybody. That's possible. But my take was that she believed what she was saying.
Including Bryce's claim that she was brainwashed by the CIA at Hockman's very hospital.
UCLA is the biggest hospital west of the Mississippi, so I don't know what's going on in every laboratory, every patient room, every closet, every corridor to corridor.
However, Dr. Hockman suspects Bryce is not a victim of CIA mind control, but of a strange condition known as false memory syndrome, in which delusions are unwittingly reinforced and sometimes even implanted by psychotherapists themselves.
Many of the cases in recent years that have caused problems have been the result of psychotherapists. They didn't really understand the power of the techniques and the way techniques can make things go wrong.
We contacted 3 Los Angeles psychotherapists who treated Bryce, but all of them refused to discuss her case even with her permission. Pam Monday believes that's because they've already been threatened by the CIA.
There is no such thing as false memory syndrome. There's nothing in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that says there is such a thing.
In fact, Dr. Monday claims the condition was actually concocted by the CIA to cover up its mind control experiments. Are you CIA?
As far as I know, I'm not CIA. Maybe they know I'm CIA, but I don't know.
Meanwhile, Bryce Taylor remains convinced that her memories are tragically real.
I definitely believe this is still going on, and I believe it will continue to go on until it's exposed and stopped.
Bryce Taylor wrote about her alleged life as a CIA sex slave in vivid detail in a new book out called Thanks for the Memories. Believe it or not.
True or not, I feel so sorry for the daughter.
Is that awful?
She seems like the victim in all this.
Yeah, catatonic state. A lot of questions still.
Thanks for that. Coming up next.
Chop up babies or cut the heads off of cats.
As far as Anton LaVey is concerned, I'm sure there's a lot of people that follow him and consider him a serious Satanist, and I have interviewed a couple that do. But from what I can read on the occult books and the other Satanists that I have interviewed, they don't consider Anton LaVey that serious. He's a showman.
Judy and I heard about each other. I don't know if you heard about me or I heard about you.
Right.
But it was a natural relationship because we're both private investigators. I'm in Los Angeles, she's down in Long Beach. And as any good investigator would do, just to learn or hear about satanic cults isn't enough. You've got to jump into it and delve into it and develop sources and informants, which we both have done. I've been told by a woman who was born into the movement and was in it for more than 15 years, that there are several hundred satanic groups across the nation that practice human and animal sacrifice. In all walks of life, doctors, lawyers, airline pilots, educators. I have been told of one superintendent of schools who's a practicing Satanist.
It wasn't until about 4 years ago that I what we call breakthrough. I began to have these memories. Then I had to start putting my life together. One of the earliest memories that I had was a brick wall, and they took these babies and they nailed them by their heads in a circle on that wall, and then they had 3 crosses. And in the middle cross, they had a man hung up there. Now, that man had tried to save my twin sister and me. And unfortunately, they captured him. And so they hung him up there, and then they hung my twin sister on one cross, and they hung me on the other side on another cross. But they had this pile of bloody baby parts in front of them. And they stood there with my older sister, and they threw those parts at us as we hung up on the wall. They follow a religious calendar. similar to the Christians have a Christian calendar. And at one of their big times is at the crucifixion of Christ. And so what they were doing is they were playing out the crucifixion of Christ.
The younger the soul, the more innocent the soul, because they've had less chance to sin. So the more innocent the soul that they sacrifice, the more power in the sacrifice. And that was told to me, again, by a practicing Satanist. When they kill the child and they've brought them to total fear, if they eat the flesh, then they, of course, acquire the child's awareness, his uniqueness, and, you know, his IQ, his courage, his whatever.
Well, the area I'm from, on the North Shore of Chicago, in the probably middle 1800s, I believe that that's about the time when this must have begun in that village, that the Satanists infiltrated. My grandfather, who was a very prominent Methodist minister in the Chicago area, I believe that he not only was the Methodist minister, but he was also into the Satanic beliefs and practices. My father was corporate executive for Chicago Stockyards for 32 years, so he had an easy access to a lot of things there at the stockyards that they could use in these kind of rituals. And we had 2 little grocery stores there with walk-in cold butcher units. And that's where they would hang these bodies, you know, that they would use in the rituals. And they would hang me up there and tell me that this is what would happen to me if I opened my mouth and talked.
They also are very heavy into mind control, and they pass this on from generation to generation. In other words, they'll have a whole family that'll practice Satan worshiping. They take those kids and they raise them. It's like the mind control in Vietnam, but the communists have used in the past.
And then, of course, we've got all our adult survivors, who, and there's so many that it's frightening, actually. But they're coming forward, and they're saying, somebody stop it.
I was alone in the room at first. Then there were people that came in. They looked like priests. They had black suits on like a priest. They didn't have a white collar. They had black masks on. Then they began to chant. They brought the baby that was in the bucket. They pulled a baby up out of that bucket. And the baby was kind of whimpering like a baby, a newborn baby. They literally took the knife and went from the chest bone down and cut it wide open. They then took, everyone in that room took the guts of the baby, literally reached in, hand in, and took with the baby, still moving, screaming, and apparently the baby then went limp, but they took the living guts of this baby out and ate it. My grandfather was doing the praying, and he began a prayer out of the book. As he held the baby over me, he said, "O Holy One of the world, we offer you this libation for strength and power in your name, Satan. We offer this child and girl as a living sacrifice for your power and glory, and we dedicate this Virgin of God and make her holy by fornication, molestation, incest, cannibalism, and torture." The baby was dead, the girl was dead, and I was just there, and these people were all around me, so I just assumed that I was going to get the same thing.
Bear in mind that they also incinerate. They have the cremators, and they destroy the bodies. There's no evidence.
Part of the proof that that happens, wasn't it somebody down in Texas, that wasn't it Henry Lee Lucas, who actually said that he had gone to schools where they taught him how to kidnap a child?
Who trained you? The hands of death. We were trained in detail what to do, what to look for. It's just like going out and going to school. It's type we learn through books, through actual participation in killings.
Lucas claimed that he was trained to kill as a Satanist. Unless the FBI, law enforcement in general, looks at this seriously and does something about it, it's going to continue to expand. We're going to have the pyramid effect.
So often when we have tried to get protection from law enforcement, they don't believe us. I'm very careful. I'm very careful where I talk about this, and you know, I screen the people I'm around. They can do anything they want to. That means if they cared to kill you, they wouldn't think anything of it.
Somebody left 13 dead red roses and 13 dead chrysanthemums on my front lawn in Westwood, California.
I received 6 dead lizards and 6 dead birds in a pile on my porch.
I did not wait to see if it was a threat. I left town immediately.
But I did know who had left them there. So I just picked them up and drove up to where they lived and put them back on their porch.
In addition, I developed a considerable amount of information on 18 murders that were committed by the Satanic cult people and members of their group. Some were drug-related, some weren't, some were sacrifices. And I have this information in sealed envelopes, in 12 sealed envelopes, and if anything happens to me, these envelopes with the names, dates, places will be mailed to some key people.